Welcome to Unit 18, Controlling Project Quantities and Costs in the Workplace. Well, let's jump straight into the unit overview, the introduction to this unit. If as a construction manager you get this element of your working life correct, you and your company will prosper and you will stay in work. If you don't, you won't, because all construction companies are in the business of making money and not losing it. So it's of paramount importance that we get this right. Well, in this unit overview, we will examine exactly what contains in this unit. So what is it all about? Finishing to program and cost safely, or within the specified program and cost safely, is the aim of every good construction manager. Bonuses and repeat business and maintaining a good client relationship and possible repeat business are also the aims of a good manager. This unit is all about finishing to cost, controlling costs, anticipating extra costs, pricing for the unexpected, allocating costs where appropriate, and having the records of added costs available so that the final settlement, that is for extra and overworks that have been undertaken, are paid for without question. For that to happen, a construction manager must have airtight records. If you've been following other guidance within this series, you know that it's been mentioned several times by myself that a construction manager is only as good as their records. Doing the work is the easy part. Getting paid for it is much harder. And a good construction manager has to recognise that. So, whilst I review the learning aims of this unit, let's also review the possible records and procedures site managers need in order for a project to complete to budget, and during the same analysis let's look at the types of examples of product evidence required to complete this unit. Now there are purely examples. In your company you may use other practices and procedures, but I trust that these will point you in the right direction. So let's have a look at the learning outcomes. Let's have a look at how many there are. There are 7 learning outcomes in all. The first learning outcome: implement appropriate quantities and cost control systems which are able to provide early warnings of problems. So what we're talking about here is early warnings. So it could be progress meeting minutes where you've highlighted an issue. Day work register. You're noticing that you're having to issue a lot of day works at the initial part of the program. You want to find out the reason why. So along with the day work register, evaluation records or interim evaluations. They will give you a good forecast of where you are, how much work you're producing in contrast to the works program. The second learning outcome: ensure that quantity and cost data is regularly collected, record it and pass it on to the appropriate people responsible in time for them to be able to use it. So what types of records do we keep as construction managers? What type of records do we have for quantity and cost data that we regularly collect and pass on? Labour allocation sheets, site attendance records for your directly employed and for subcontractors. Plant records, updated material and plant schedules, again interim evaluation and payment records, day work records and agreed extra over records. Could even be the case of an updated welfare budget register. waste management budget and waste management plan with recorded up-to-date expenditure. These are the type of weekly / monthly records that a good construction manager will be passing on to his head office or his project manager regularly. Learning outcome number 3. Ensure that work values, quantities and cost data are prepared. Again, this is a planning exercise, so what we're looking at is when having to get a contractor in to price up some extra overworks, do you have a record of 3 estimates and not just the 1? And do you have a contract evaluation or a quality assurance scheme that you use? Interim, progress and production and evaluation reports. So as we can see in these 3 learning outcomes, we are sort of getting into a rhythm of the types of evidence that are pertinent to this unit. Let's move on to the 4th learning outcome. Ensure that accurate quantities and cost data are prepared and presented in a format which will help the people responsible to make decisions. Any of the information or the product evidences that I've mentioned before would be appropriate, but we're talking also of the bill of quants, and as mentioned, the weekly and monthly office returns, which include cost records for plant, staff, welfare, site logistics and site costs, and even a project progress meeting minutes. Number 5. Ensure that variations and trends in quantities and cost data are identified, quantified and costed. So what we're talking about here, variations and trends. So what is your extra and over process? RFIs, site instructions, issuing of day worksheets, assigned with order numbers, extra over subcontract estimates and orders. So with that type of product information, you are ensuring that variation and trends in cost data are identified, quantified and costed. Number 6. Ensure that variations are investigated and implement appropriate corrective action with people responsible. So here we might have an email correspondence, a trail of correspondence that tells the whole story, site meeting or project meeting minutes, extra over process, RFIs, site instructions as mentioned before, day worksheets assigned with order numbers, extra over subcontract estimate and orders, agreed overtime rates and records, contra charge records, architect's instructions. So there's a variety of evidences that you could use. And the final learning outcome, identify opportunities for cost savings and recommend them to people responsible. Cost savings normally done at planning, but can be done during the production part of the process, construction process. So we could have pre-start meeting minutes, progress meeting minutes, planning or project meeting minutes. So it's at these meeting minutes where you have records of identified opportunities for cost savings, and it could even be at a subcontractor pre-start meeting where there could be some lifting operations involved and you plan those operations to suit other trades on site. Therefore you only have to have 1 crane on site. Anything of that ilk. Well, I believe we've now covered a good introduction of this unit, which is controlling project quantities and costs in the workplace. You've got a good idea, take your time, plan your candidate statements and plan carefully which evidences you're going to use. Go through all of the learning outcomes and assign a product piece of evidence to each of them and choose those pieces of evidence which best evidence those learning outcomes which can be used for more than 1 learning outcome.